Good evening, everyone. I think we're ready to get started. I'd like to make sure everyone at the table is part of the task force or the subgroup, the SPRC. And if there's any community members, if you could please sit towards the back. And with that, I think, thank you. With that, I think we're ready to get started. So we'll do, per usual, our little video introduction and format for the sort of new protocol, and then we'll dive into the subject. With that, let me get started. So welcome to the May 15, 2023 Site Plan Review Committee for the Wakefield Manor project. We'll be holding a hybrid public meeting which enables remote electronic participation as legally authorized by the Code of Virginia for the Planning Commission's electronic meeting policy adopted on July 7, 2022. Members of the SPRC for Wakefield Manor are participating both here in person and virtually through electronic meetings. At this time, I'd like to orient everyone to our hybrid environment and cover a few specifics about how tonight's meeting will run. Members of the public may attend the meeting here in person or electronically by using Microsoft Teams link provided on the SPRC webpage. The project webpage, the county's events calendar, and the email notification sent to the SPRC email subscriber. Additionally, there is a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use it. For our subgroup members joining virtually, if anyone loses internet connectivity during today's meeting, please reconnect with us via phone. Please keep your phones and devices muted until you are called upon. Turn off sound of any other devices around you to minimize interference. For our virtual attendees using Microsoft Teams, please turn off your video feed. I will address when it's appropriate to turn it on in a moment. The Microsoft Teams meeting chat is active to serve two purposes: the SPRC subgroup members who need technical assistance, and members of the public to add their names to the list of public comments which will be taken at the end of the meeting. Team chat should not be used for discussion. Those who are planning to provide public comment will still need to do so at the end of the meeting, as the chat will not serve as that opportunity. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public comment period. If members are participating virtually wish to be recognized to speak on an item during the course of the meeting, please turn your video feed and raise your virtual hand in Teams. I will monitor the video feeds that are on as an indicator that you would like to speak. If members are participating by phone today without the video option, please announce your name and group if you are representing now, and I will verbally check in to see if you wish to be recognized as you do not have the video feed option. Does not look like phone. There are any phones. Great. Okay. For members of the public who would like to provide feedback on the comments, you will be called on to speak at the end of the meeting and will be allotted 2 minutes to speak from tonight's agenda item. The speaking time allotted will depend on the number of speakers we are having this evening. If you wish to speak, please enter your name at the meeting chat for virtual attendees or provide staff with your name if in person, and you will be added to the speakers list. Lastly, this is a public forum. Today's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is the subject to Freedom of Information Act requirements. Great, now we've gotten that out of the way. On today's meeting, we have, this is SPRC number 2, make sure everyone's in the right meeting. We're going to discuss project updates, transportation, green building, construction plans, and community benefits. We'll start with a presentation from staff, followed by the applicant's presentation, and then we'll engage in discussion. 10 minutes or so, adequate for everyone? All right, for the presentations, take it away. First, introduction. Right, I forgot, which is always particularly good for me since I forget everyone's name. So I'm Leo Sarli with the Planning Commission. I am co-chairing this with Commissioner Steinberger, who will be arriving shortly.
Karen Gabata, Planning Commission.
Sorry, I skipped Kevin. Forget.
Kevin Lamb, Planning Division.
Karen Gabata, Planning Commission.
Leslie Arminsky, Rave Bomb. Stephen Alessio, C2E2.
Jerry Laporte, Historical Affairs and Landmark Review Board.
Jim Lantelli, Planning Commission.
Eileen Horn, KGD Architecture, Architect.
Matt Bunch with the applicant.
Andrew Painter with Walsh Colucci, along with Lauren Riley from Walsh Colucci, working with the applicant.
Welcome.
Kellen Macbeth, Housing Commission.
Kate Donahue, Forestry and Natural Resources. Bill Barker, Parks and Rec Commission.
James Brinson with the Tap Towers neighboring property board. Ralph Tooth, Stat Towers, Chairman Manager.
Ellen Peterson, Planning Commission.
Welcome, everyone.
Peter Schultz, Arlington Planning Staff.
Okay, and then the community members that are with us?
Alex Spencer, Wakefield Manor resident.
Jen, Wakefield Manor resident.
Welcome. And then any online?
This one's
my
person.
person.
Oh, sorry.
I'm hiding behind the house. Joel Maris from Taft Towers.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for coming. All right, do we have anyone online?
Stuart Stein, Rayfom.
Welcome, Stuart.
You also have Rob Gibson from County DES online.
Rob, care to introduce yourself?
This is Robert Gibson with Arlington County DES.
Thank you. And then I see the design team is up and ready, so you guys introduce yourself.
Good evening. This is Dan Van Pelt with Grove Slade, the transportation consultant, working with the applicant.
I'm Jeff Krebs with VICA, both civil engineer and landscape architect.
Great.
Henry Mons with KGD Architecture, working with Eileen and team.
Rich Pivsky with the applicant.
All right, well, thank you everyone for coming tonight. And with that, I will hand it over to Kevin.
Bring up my slides there. So good evening, everyone. Kevin Lamb with the Planning Division, also the lead planner for this project. So tonight we'll be discussing the 2025 Fairfax Drive project, also known as the Wakefield Manor Site Plan Amendment. So for staff's presentation, we'll go over just a few of the SPRC topics for discussion tonight. These include transportation, green building and sustainability, and then community benefits. So first up, we have transportation. In terms of streetscape, the applicant is proposing improvements to the streetscape and sidewalks for 3 sides of the block the project is located on. So first we have Fairfax Drive, which is to the south. The applicant is proposing an 8-foot sidewalk and 6-foot planting strip directly adjacent to the building. Similar to what was approved back in 2011, the applicant is reconfiguring the terminus for Fairfax Drive into a cul-de-sac. And this cul-de-sac includes lanes in both directions, as well as a parking lane on the south side of Fairfax Drive. And then also they are expanding the planting buffer located between the Arlington Boulevard Trail and Fairfax Drive. So looking to the east, we have Troy Street. So the applicant is proposing a 6-foot sidewalk and a 5-foot planting strip directly adjacent to the site. Feedback. So that's directly adjacent to the site. However, north of the site itself, they are also expanding the sidewalk there. Due to the existing conditions, they are expanding it to 6 feet as well. However, they are expanding it into the existing 2.5-foot planting strip, which is located along Troy Street. And then moving to the north, we have 13th Street. So the applicant is proposing to slightly reduce the curb-to-curb width on this street in order to accommodate a brand new sidewalk located on the south side of 13th. The sidewalk will be at least 4 feet wide. Moving on to parking. So the project will be situated where the existing surface lots are, which serves the existing Wakefield and Courthouse Manor residents. So as a result, the applicant will be providing 120 new parking spaces as part of the new development. This consists of 90 spaces for the new residents, which will be accessed off of Fairfax Drive, and will be located on the ground floor as well as on 2 underground parking levels. We also have 30 new parking spaces for the existing residents, which will be accessed off of Troy Street, and will be located on a mezzanine level, which is above grade. So overall, the proposed residential parking ratio for this project is 0.48 spaces per unit, which is above the 0.3 spaces per unit recommended in the residential parking guidelines. So moving on to green building, the applicant is participating in the green building incentive program at the 0.35 FAR level. As a result, the applicant will build the project at a LEED Gold certification. It will also include energy optimization performance improvement, as well as an Energy Star score of at least 80 or higher. The applicant will also participate by meeting the baseline prerequisites of the program, which include Energy Star appliances and water sense fixtures, EV charging and EV infrastructure, as well as bird-friendly facade materials in the tower. So in order to achieve the 0.35 FAR level, the applicant will be pursuing 3 extra list options listed here. So they have indicated they will be pursuing envelope commissioning and air leakage test, renewable energy procurement, as well as whole building life cycle impact reduction. So in terms of community benefits, the applicant will be pursuing those listed here. So in terms of affordable housing, the applicant will be providing the base affordable housing contribution, as most site plans do. They'll also meet the Fort Myers Heights North Plan affordable housing requirement, which roughly translates to a portion of the GFA is subject to a 20% affordable housing requirement, and the plan recommends this requirement be provided on site. And then lastly, at least preliminarily, the applicant will or may provide additional affordable housing contribution to earn the additional bonus density. In terms of transportation, as I previously mentioned, the applicant will be enhancing the streetscape and sidewalk on Fairfax Drive, 13th Street, and North Troy Street. And then they'll also be reconfiguring the Fairfax Drive terminus into the cul-de-sac. And then in terms of sustainability, as I mentioned, the applicant will be pursuing LEED Gold and then also participate in the Green Building Incentive program criteria at the 0.35 FAR level. So here is a timeline of the project thus far. So back in December, we had an in-person walking tour, as well as the online engagement opportunity. This was followed by the first SPRC meeting that we had back in March, which covered the following topics. And then here we are today. So just diving into some of the community engagement efforts for this project, beginning with the online feedback form, staff conducted outreach to the Wakefield Manor and Courthouse Manor apartments, the Woodbury Heights condos, Taft Tower condos, as well as the Bell at Courthouse Apartments, which is located across Courthouse Road. We also provided outreach to the Radnor, Fort Myers Heights, and Clarendon Courthouse Civic Associations. In both the online feedback form as well as the SPRC meetings, we conducted promotional activities, which involved emails and phone calls to the points of contacts for these same groups. We did outreach through the county's e-newsletters, social media posts, and then it's also listed on the county's public engagement webpage. And then in terms of the flyer, this was more specific to the online feedback form back in December, where staff developed a flyer in both English and Spanish and work with the resident services manager at Wakefield and Courthouse Manor to distribute flyer to each unit. Based on the 95 participants that responded to the online feedback form, around a third indicated they were current residents of Wakefield or Courthouse Manor. And with that, have to pass it on to the applicant for their presentation.
Take it away.
Thank you. Again, my name is Andrew Painter. I'm a zoning attorney with Walsh Colucci, working with Pat Bunch and George Shapisky of Fortis, and Eileen and Henry Mons with KGD have put together a slideshow. And then we're also going to be asking Dan Van Pelt, who is our traffic consultant, to join in as well. Just to sort of step back a second, I know Eileen's going to go through some of this. What we've tried to do in this presentation, at least, is provide a little bit more elaboration as to the streetscape and the lobby entrance, the views. I think there was a question about the views of the western passageway as well. So we'll show you some of those. And then we spent the vast majority of our time since the first SPRC meeting working on issues related to the elevated courtyard. We've had some preliminary discussions with staff, but kind of going in a totally different direction for that courtyard, which I think it comes across very well, at least to us it does. And it's a different, it just changed the entire typology of what that courtyard would look like. We have added a bench on the northern pathway, or at the terminus of the northern pathway. There was a question about trying to activate that a little bit more, have it as a place for actual gathering. There's not enough space to put it on the pathway, so we put it at the end of the pathway along North Troy Street, right at the edge there. We have also committed to constructing or installing additional plantings around the existing buildings. There was one comment that was made that in the afternoon sun on the western facing portions of the building, that it just beats down as far as like sunshine, and it creates a lot of heat and stuff like that. There is not enough room to put trees there thanks to the VDOT widening project. But what we've tried to do is put plantings elsewhere around the property, especially along North 13th Street, where it's denuded of any vegetation. And then we've also been working with staff. We heard kind of loud and clear, I think last time, unanimity as far as doing something more with the reclaimed space at Fairfax Drive between the future cul-de-sac and North Courthouse Road. We had a meeting with DES and with Mr. Lamb just to talk through what that space could be, something other than just turf. They're running it up the flagpole. We haven't gotten any consensus on it, but we've been very pleased with their response as far as having some seating areas, landscaped areas, maybe a trellis or something like that in that area to create sort of more of a focal point of a gateway. But nothing really to share on that right now because it's still sort of work in progress. And then one more thing I would just mention, there was one comment about the space on the setback, the building-to-building setback on the northern side of northern facade. Staff has also provided us that guidance from last week. They gave us some specific comments. We haven't responded back to staff with that yet, but we are internally working on ways to kind of carve the building sculpt a little bit differently in order to address that comment. So coming out of SPRC, I think the two big to-do items that we have from last SPRC meeting are to finalize what that Fairfax Drive open space would be programmatically. And really that's also a discussion between DES staff and planning staff, what that space wants to be, and then working on that building sculpting and carving, which are last time as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Eileen to sort of walk through, and then Dan will be walking through the transportation slides.
So we'll be talking first about the key changes, transportation, and then go through green building sustainability, review that, talk about construction timing. So in terms of the key changes, like Andrew said, we're looking at the lobby entrance and streetscape, and so we're giving you a view of that as well as the view of the West Passage, more elaborated view, so it's easier to see what we have in mind. Another renderings of the courtyard. We've talked about the architectural form, the benches, the painting, plantings, and the open space. So this is Okay, this is the view of the entrance at Fairfax and Troy. So there was a lot of concern last meeting that the facade was not activated enough. And what we're trying to show you here is the lobby is a 2-story lobby. And most of those windows that you're seeing on Troy Street here on the right side are all open to the lobby. And then at the top of the cursor? Oh, yes. Okay, so all the way up here, there is the garage door for the residents of Wakefield Manor, and then there is another door to the stair. And other than that, the rest is really open. Okay. This is the view of the passage on the west side of the building, looking up the hill from Fairfax Drive. So this is the passageway, the lighting. There was a lot of discussion last time about lighting and safety, and also not creating glare into people's homes. So this is the direction that we're looking at. And then you can see down on the lower left side is a key plan, so you can see relative to the plan where this view is taken. In terms of the elevated courtyard, on the right is what we presented at the last SPRC meeting, and on the left is the new interpretation of that courtyard. And it's really, as you can see, reduced the hardscape, increased the planting, brought in more significant trees, and really created sort of a terracing of the landscaping down to the tree that's at the focal point there at the circle.
If I may just say a couple words, I think one of the comments that we heard last time was, just about viewing this through a social equity lens. First of all, we start from the premise in Arlington County that parking should be below grade. This is partially above grade, right? So already we're at a deficit with this project. There's a reason. There's a series of reasons why it has to be sort of in this configuration. But once you get past that point, then the comment is, okay, well, now how do you design it to so it is least obtrusive, least offensive, et cetera. What we showed on the right-hand side last time was an elevated courtyard that was for the exclusive use of our residents. And there was the comment that, just visually and physically, our new residents would be looking down upon other residents in the background. It just doesn't play well, right? I think we all know that. So we also heard comments about a lot of hardscaping on it. Is there a way that we could get some more overstory trees and make it less hardscape-ish? And so the direction that we went in, and this took a lot of effort, but the direction we went in was to further carve back the edges of the garage so it's not just sort of a box, and then install a series of plantings all around the property. And you can see the 4 larger trees that are going to be there. And then really kind of reduce back the area for the new building residents. And so this is a relatively small amenity area for them, but they will not physically be able to be seen generally from the existing pathways. And so all of a sudden it goes from an area where it was basically only open to our residents, new residents at least, to one where nobody can really use it, but everyone benefits from sort of the more urban forest concept. And so you have a rendering of what that could look like. Coupled with that, I think our overall approach has been, delivering this space, and then down at so that's number one, down at where the transformer vaults would be going in 2011, they were just transformer vaults. Instead, we are doing butterfly gardens, seating areas, so that's a major improvement. We did hear a comment last time about who's, the direct access from those residents, that have their units running on it. But that's number 2. Number 3, feeding into that, of course, is what we do with that reclaimed Fairfax Drive area. And number 4 would be the additional plantings that we would have around the existing Wakefield Manor buildings, which we're proposing. So.
One more thing here is that if you can see the cursor, the access now to the parking garage Wakefield Manor residents has been moved down here on the after our discussion with the county, and so that this strip here adjacent to the building can also be planted. Right.
Where are you pointing? Sorry.
I can't see the cursor either.
Yeah.
So, whoops.
So
it's flipped. It's You back? That's the old one, right? I know it. I already, there we go.
So the old entrance was here?
Even higher.
Oh, sorry, up here.
Yeah, right there, that
Where the-
that little rectangle. Yeah.
And there was a strip, and for those of you who aren't able to, at home, be able to see it, but there's a man or a person walking here, but there was a ramp that we needed in order to make that entrance. Staff came back and they said, well, this is all very interesting and positive step forward, but why not move this entrance down here, and then you can pick up the grade, and then you don't need to have all of this impervious surface here. So we looked at that, and we were able to basically recapture all of that for grass to have additional setback and softer landscaping instead of that hardscape.
I'm going to jump in here really quickly. It's been 10 minutes.
Sorry.
And no, it's all good. There's a bit more presentation to go. Just keep in mind, we'll discuss these things so we can come back to them and drill down a little deeper as the community. But yeah, keep that in mind.
So this is the view from last time, and this is the new view. Okay, so this is just to give you that impression. We can come back and talk about it some more. We have the transportation slides. I don't know if you want us to talk through them or just to keep on.
Give us a brief outline,
Okay.
yeah.
Dan?
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Again, Dan Van Pelt. I'm traveling, so I don't have my usual setup, but you all can see me okay? Or you can hear me okay? All right, great. All right, so I think you're all probably pretty familiar with where the site is located, but just real quickly, I'll go through the transportation. Speaking of the pedestrian facilities, it's a well-connected network. We're 0.3 of a mile from the courthouse metro. There's 10 bus lines and routes that service that at the metro station there. And as we talked about earlier, we're going to be enhancing the pedestrian environment around the site with the improvements that we're talking around around the perimeter of the site. Very walkable, gets a walk score of 87. So switching on now to talk about the bike facilities, the figure on the right shows the bike facilities that are in the neighborhood. I'm not going to read them all out, but they're there and you can see them identified on the figure. And then we're adjacent to the Arlington Boulevard Trail. There's 3 Capital Bike Share stations that are in the vicinity, and there's a number of planned bike improvements that will help cyclists. And then just flipping over to transit, there's 2 bus stops in a quarter mile, but just a little beyond that is the metro station. So we have, when we're asked to review it, we need to look at what's in a quarter miles, but we have a lot of transit options, including the metro station that's just a little bit beyond that at 0.3 of a mile. And so then we have listed here all the bus lines that we have access to. And then going to the next slide, the site access and parking. We've talked about the parking already a little bit in Kevin's presentation, but there's 166 residential units access, and we can talk more about the access when we go through the discussion later. But we have primary pedestrian access to the site. It's going to be off of Troy and Fairfax. And then the parking access and loading for this building will be off of Fairfax. And then for the parking that will serve the existing units is off of Troy. 68 long-term bike spaces, 4 short-term bike spaces. And then I think the other thing, the bike room is you can roll right in off of Fairfax Drive. Next slide. And so we did do an MMTA for this site. And we focused on the non-auto modes here because really the transportation vehicular impacts really aren't any different than last time we looked at it back in 2011. And we found that through the enhanced site design and a transportation management plan, we can mitigate the impacts of this new development. And then the TMP is going to include the usual components that are expected in Arlington County, and the main elements of those are the participation in funding, the facilities improvement, the promotion services policies, and the performance and monitoring of the plan. And so with that, I think that's really it for transportation, and happy to answer your questions as we go through discussion later.
Yeah, I don't think we need to reread this.
Yeah, Chair, sorry, we're happy to yield, and we can just revisit these slides as we go through the talking points.
Great, great. All right. With that, then it's with the committee, and we will start discussing. Thank you both for the presentation, both staff and the applicant. And I think, yeah, I'm just taking a quick look at the last few slides. I guess it's just information.
It's construction timing and community benefits, which we've already reviewed.
Oh, good. Yeah, and we'll cover that in our conversation. All right. So tonight's meeting, we have these topics outlined, which is projects updates, what we've done, and if you guys have any questions or comments that you want to share with the applicant or staff. Transportation is going to be the big topic of conversation tonight, and green building and sustainability questions or comments. and then construction plans and community benefits. Anything else that you guys want me to add to the list that I might be missing that hasn't been covered already? Great. With that, the floor is open for discussion, beginning with project flow transportation / updates.
I had a question, I guess.
Please give me your name really quickly, sorry.
Helen Macbeth, Housing.
Thank you.
And I know we talked about this last meeting, but I think it fits into transportation, but the parking situation for the existing residents. So obviously if they're losing a lot of current spaces, do we have an idea of how many residents will be displaced because they have a car and they won't be able to have a car anymore, living on the property because we're taking away a whole bunch of parking for them?
I don't know if I think we only know the numbers. So the numbers right now are there's 42 parking spaces that are in the existing parking lot. They're not managed as far as, transportation management or anything like that. We are replacing that with 30 parking spaces. And then the improvements in this new garage. And then around the site, with the transportation improvements or the upgrades that were being made on 13th Street, Troy, and especially on Fairfax, I think there is a net loss of approximately 5 parking spaces, on-street public parking spaces. So I think, yeah, those are the raw numbers.
Those are the numbers.
Okay.
That's what we know.
How does that get factored into community benefit? I mean, knowing that the project is likely going to end up forcing, 17 residents or households to say, like, I can't live here anymore because there's no place to put my car. How does that impact play into the development plans and potential community benefits?
I don't know how it works in terms of potential community benefits. I might actually recognize Rob or Kevin to talk about just county policy. But I will say that under the existing current approved site plan, they have a garage. They have a garage space for 113 spaces, but none of those spaces were guaranteed to serve the existing residents. So I think this is the first time, as far as a proposal would be, to at least have at least 30 exclusive dedicated parking spaces just for the existing Wayfield residents. And there was a comment last time that was made about, okay, well, what happens if you have underutilized parking in the garage? Would you lease those out to the owner of the building? And we are certainly not opposed to doing that at all. And we can talk more about that. But, we'd be happy to if there was, if parking demand proves to not be what we think it's going to be.
And then I see that Rob has his hand raised, DS Planner.
Kevin, thank you. I just also wanted to highlight the fact that I think in some of the calculations that have been discussed, we've talked about the spaces in the garage. There are also 10 spaces associated with the parcel that will remain, that are also accessed, surface spaces that are also accessed off of North Troy Street.
But yeah, I mean, those are already going to be taken by other people who have those spots. It just seems, I don't know if this is more something for the county to answer or look into, but like, if we're moving forward with a project that is going to displace residents because we're taking away something that they depend on, it should be planned for and accounted for in some capacity. I don't know what is typically done for site plan projects where that is the case, where it's impacting, existing residents, but I feel like it should be accounted for somehow in the planning process. And I know we have relocation plans and things like that. I don't think this really applies here. But, and again, maybe that is just a county thing to take care of, and maybe that's the tenant assistance fund or something. But yeah, it seems like a big impact.
Go ahead, Robert.
So Arlington County has never had a policy or identified in any of our planning processes a requirement to rehouse cars as opposed to other core goals of the county. Affordable housing, multimodal transportation access, these sorts of things. And so as we look at this project, as the applicant has said, this project, as we're writing the conditions, will dedicate parking for existing residents in a manner that had not been previously in past county board approvals. And this will guarantee that there is a minimum of 30 spaces available to current and future residents of the historic properties.
Okay, I can take that conversation offline and talk to the board or, you know, other staff, but it just seems like that's something we should be accounting for if we're approving a project and residents are likely to be displaced because currently they have parking and they're not, and assuming that they would either sell their cars or decide they no longer need them, they're probably likely to move. And I feel like displacement is something overall.
Perfect. Thank you, Tyler.
Okay.
The point.
Well, just a question, just find out how important this is. Of the 42 spots that are there now for residents, you know, are all 42 spots generally taken at 8 p.m.? Okay, so that's helpful to know as well.
Yeah, thanks.
I have a question. Maybe it was said last time, but how are the 30 spots for the current Wakefield Manor apartments going to be allocated? Are they going to have to pay extra for that, or do you know?
That's going to be between the property manager is going to have to. I mean, that's going to be it. We're going to have an agreement that's like an easement agreement. It's a cooperation agreement between existing. It's a different ownership entity of the existing Wakefield property and what our project will be. So, but that's going to be for them to determine how to lease the spots out to their residents.
Well, it's quite possible they're going to increase people's rent to guarantee them a parking space.
We haven't had any conversations about, and it's completely up to the Wakefield entity what they want.
I mean, that's built into their lease right now, right? Is that how it works? It's built into, you're not paying separately for it. Yeah, so it's built into the lease.
I can speak to this as a community member. We don't pay for parking, and the thought that we will have to pay for parking is enough of a reason to consider not living there. This project is at best a painful disruption to think about in every regard.
I think I'm going to editorialize a little bit here. I think this is a normal process of growth, and we've had a lengthy discussion not too long ago about missing middle, which everyone is sort of aware of. You know, there is this constant push and pull between housing people and housing cars, right? Cars take up a lot of real estate, and it's just a conversation, painful as it is. I'm not dismissing any particular perspective, but it is one that we're not going to solve tonight. So I think well noted, you know, that we are sort of causing a certain amount of displacement, right? We are introducing a lot more housing opportunities for people too. It's just to counterbalance that sort of perspective. And I think insofar as we can help, you know, and I think the 30 parking spots are intended to do that, to sort of ameliorate the negative impact of eliminating some parking spots. But it continues to be the policy of the county that we move towards a public transportation emphasis and a car-free diet and all these other things. So again, I'm not prescribing anything here. I'm just reminding that is an ongoing conversation. And, you know, there's a lot of other bigger pieces moving around it. So, you know, with that, I think I'd love to move on to some other aspects of transportation if we can. Commissioner.
Well, I have a question about parking, but it's about electric vehicle parking and what percentage of spots are going to have electric vehicle charging stations and what percentage of spots are going to be EV ready so that maybe they aren't, you know, when the building first opens, but that would be outfitted so that they could easily convert to more charging stations when that demand.
So 4% of the parking spaces at the time that the building opens will be EV charging stations, and 15% will be EV ready with the infrastructure for conversion.
Good follow up on that. Does that include both the parking for the existing building and for the new building? That both of them will have a certain amount of EV ready spots or EV either potential or ready, so that it's not all on just the new building or just on the old building. It'll be
proportionally more shift.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I brought this up on the Wendy's site as well. That's the minimum. We would like to see more than the minimum. Okay, and the thing is that you haven't, I don't know if it's called a subcommittee or E2, C2, but almost certainly will advocate for more than you have shown here.
Yeah, I will sort of associate myself with that sentiment too. The market is what the market is, and that ship is not so much leaving as it's arriving, I guess. So I think, yeah, the more that you can sort of preemptively be ready for that, the better. Anything else? Yes.
For the courtyard, so you said that when you guys added additional trees and sort of changed that landscape, that more of it will be sort of inaccessible or unusable. But can you describe a little bit more, like, so it's just greenery that people can't walk under into, it's there providing shade, but it's not
accessible, right? Yeah, I mean, we looked at trying to get, I mean, there were thoughts last time about, okay, if you're gonna have this area, it's gated off, there's gonna be stairs, and I see Jeff Krauss popped up, who's our landscape designer, he can walk you through it. But we looked at providing steps, which, we actually could do, but then it's not fully accessible to all members of the community. We can't get a ramp up, there's not enough linear feet in order to do that. And then we started saying to ourselves, okay, well, what's the cost benefit of doing so? And so where we arrived at was to create kind of more of a forest kind of concept with more shade and tree cover, and we were able to eliminate the any type of glass railing or any type of railing at all. But Jeff, I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
No, Andrew, I think you hit the high points there. I think that's the most important part, is that we've just increased the plantable area and sort of recessed the hardscape area to the back, so that the people on the sidewalk level are not immediately sort of being looked down upon by the folks in the courtyard. But I think that's this is a really nice, elegant, and lushly planted solution, and the way that that KGD, the architect, was able to taper the garage down to make that happen, I think is really beneficial to the project.
And I think, isn't it true, Eileen, that we also looked at not like even with the low rise here, but we looked at more of a natural concept as well, so that you don't even see the building.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is to create that incline, but what we did is we did lower a tier so that we were reducing the head height right over the front of the cars, and therefore being able to start a little bit lower and then move up. And so this is an inspiration. This is where things will be, but the planting is probably not as well rendered as it will look.
And Jeff, we're meeting our tree canopy requirement now.
Yeah, that's an important point. With this change, we're able to meet the tree canopy goal for the site. So that was very important, and we had always was first in our mind to be able to meet that. It was a challenge first, but now we're there. So.
Can I ask what that goal is?
Yes.
What is the tree canopy coverage now?
Total square feet is about plus or minus 2,220 plus or minus. And
what is that percentage wise, please?
It's slightly over 10%, which is our requirement. And that means the interesting thing about this, as you may know, is that there's a 10% requirement on the site. And because our property lines are close to the building, all the street trees that we're planting don't count toward that, nor do the trees we're planting at the end of the cul-de-sac and anywhere else. None of that counts. It has to be on the site. So we were really constrained to put all of this on the building, more or less, except for the one tree you see in the foreground there, which is slightly off the structure. So, but we were able to meet the site goal of 10% through this reconfiguration, which I think is important.
Do you have can I follow up on that? Can
Sorry.
I follow up on that?
Absolutely, sorry.
I'm Jill from the Parks and Rec Commission, and I was just wondering, if you don't have it now, you can get it later. I was just wondering what the total tree canopy coverage is of the entire area once you include those extra plants.
Meaning the site and our immediate and sort of the immediate surrounding. We can certainly give you that number. I mean, that's fairly easy to, but did you mean the entire block, like all the way up to 13th Street, or just our sort of immediate improvements?
Well, what your improvements are that you are proposing, I'm interested in the percentage of tree canopy cover in the neighborhood And I have my own sources of information for the other surrounding area. So I'm interested to know if the neighborhood is going to have more or less tree canopy cover than it does now in this area that you're controlling.
Oh, yeah, it will certainly have more than is out there now.
That would be a good number to show me as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Any other, yes?
Yeah, I want to follow up on this discussion on this here. I'm very much attracted to the idea of increasing the tree canopy here. It definitely adds to the biophilic elements that should be on this project, so that's great. I strongly urge that this be native plantings.
Yeah.
We get more pollinators.
Sure.
The other thing is at the bottom there, the grass strip that you recaptured on the north-south walkway. You might want to think about that because unless you deliberately want that to be a pet relief area, that's what it's going to be. You know, I only can guarantee that's what it's going to be used for. So if you want to keep it that way and make it officially that may be fine. But otherwise, instead of grass, think through better green usage plantings.
Yeah, if I could just jump in there real quick. I think, as Eileen mentioned, the plant rendering at this point is just very conceptual, basically to delineate what's green, what's not. But I think our goal all along has been that would be, shrub and ground cover, a much more lush planting palette. Basically everything that's on this site, certainly. There are maintenance issues, as you could imagine, to contend with as well. So anything that's lawn would be down in the cul-de-sac area. But this particular spot you're talking about absolutely would be more appropriate to be shrubs and ground cover. So thank you.
Great, that's what I was hoping. Can I follow up on the cul-de-sac, the planting there?
Yeah, let me. Go ahead, Commissioner Townley.
Okay, for the green space at the end of the cul-de-sac, I'm glad that people are now talking about that. So that will be DES rather than Parks and Rec having jurisdiction over that. Am I correct about that, Rob? Or Kevin?
It is about the grassy area?
Yeah, at the end of Fairfax. It's being recaptured from the street. That won't be Parks and Rec. That would be DES owned and dealt with.
We'll have to talk internally. Oh, go ahead, Rob.
So that would continue to be right of way. However, I think as Kevin was about to mention, we continue to talk with the applicant about maintenance of that area, along with internally how to appropriately maintain improvements that could come along with this site plan.
Okay, well, what I advocate there is that if it was park space, of course, there would be community consultations there as to how it could be used, what's the best design for it. We're doing that in Clarendon on the right-of-way next to the Wells Fargo site. This seems to be conceptually similar, that you're keeping it as a right-of-way, but DES is going to be doing it. I think the community would want to have at least a voice or have some way of weighing in on it. I mean, personally, I would think that rain garden would be a great use somewhere on that. Other ideas thrown out, great, but as long as it's not just grass, this empty grass, that just seems pointless. So,
Commissioner Lantomi.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I do want to make it very clear. We are not proposing an additional public process either through DES or DPR to design this area. This would be the process that would see the culmination of any improvements in that space.
Okay, then you're going to have to come up with something a little more concrete by the time this gets to Planning Commission, so we can actually have a good discussion as to what will work, and that we can get better input on that.
Can I follow up on that?
Yes, I will associate myself with that comment and that concern. I think that's a really important thing to bring to the. Go ahead.
And this is probably an aside, but it seems that a good use of that space would be to address stormwater runoff issues. And if DES is involved, I would love to see, some of that type of planning go into that space.
DES, that's your jurisdiction, rain gardens and stormwater.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Montami.
So I had a kind of follow-up question about rainwater and stormwater management. Does this elevated courtyard play any role in stormwater retention facility under there? If there's native species, there could be benefits there, so is there
If I
any
can
role?
piggyback on that, also the depth of that planter, do we have some numbers for that? I think that's really significant on the viability of
3 to
the.
4, 3 feet, 4 feet, what we're working with to get those trees up there. So,
Between 3 and 4 feet.
yeah.
And does that support the sort of trees that you're illustrating on the
Yeah,
plan?
Jeff, do
Yeah.
you want to speak to that?
Yeah, 3 is the absolute minimum that the county will allow for us to count those trees towards canopy coverage. So 3 is the bare minimum, and then we have more in some places, and we're still working with KGD to finalize the complete section through there. But we absolutely will meet those soil, not only depth, but volume requirements in order to count those trees toward canopy coverage.
Great, thank you.
And just a quick note to answer the stormwater management question. We're meeting all of the stormwater goals on site, and part of that strategy, which has it's like a kit of parts, right? We can do it a number of ways through either green roof or stormwater planters, or at grade or in the courtyard. In this particular case, there likely will be some stormwater planters at that courtyard level with leaders coming down into them. So there will be an opportunity for us to do that type of planting within the courtyard. So,
Commissioner Peterson, any follow-ups? All right, I had, we're still on transportation technically. Sorry, go ahead, Kellen.
Question about the parking garage entrance for the 30-unit parking on North Troy Street. Is that going to be sort of, I know it's on a hill, but like at grade, or is it, I'm thinking the earlier parking lot up above, like you have to go up a steep, like mini hill to get to the road, and it reduces visibility of other cars. It's just going to be.
You're basically coming in, there is a little bit of a dip, and then you go around the corner and it comes back up because we need to make room for those trees. So we're doing a little bit of that, but otherwise we're taking advantage of the fact that you're coming in high on Troy and using that so that then when you come in from below, you're out of distance, right? So there is not a big incline.
And from a safety perspective, just because I know sometimes that can be tricky, like even now, because you have the building there, when people are exiting the parking lot on Troy Street, what sort of features are there to sort of enhance the visibility of people coming in and out, making sure other cars aren't coming?
Jeff, that might be a question for you as far as vision triangles and just making sure that you have pedestrian visibility turning into the site.
absolutely, especially coming off of Troy Street, right? I mean, it's steep, but the vision clearance has been checked, and so we won't have, what is a larger problem probably is the on-street parking, right? So, but that's something that we deal with all the time in Arlington residents. That there's on-street parking everywhere, so as you come out on the hillside, it's just something you have to be aware of. But we will certainly, continue to work with staff and the rest of the team just to make sure that there aren't any issues related to, site impediment.
Yes. You give me
Yes.
your name, sorry.
Yes, Aiden Maradovich, liaison from the Transportation Commission.
Oh, great.
I apologize for arriving a little bit later. I'm going to kind of continue with the questions that you asked. I think what it alludes to is that I know I have an issue with that second entrance, that curb cut, and I know Commissioner Slack also as well. We're talking about visibility issues, but we'd like it if there wasn't that curb cut at all. For a building of these few units, relatively speaking, 2 curb cuts is kind of a lot. And I know you're running into granite in the foundations. I have a series of questions, but the first question is there's absolutely no way you can make 30 extra spots down there in one level. I mean, not one level, but with that one curb cut, you need to have it separate.
No, I mean, we're going as deep as we can go right now. So then it's just a question of getting enough parking for what we need, both for as many as we could replace, and then for our residents. So that forced us to design it in a way, the separate entrance on Troy, it's certainly a better design for, I think, the residents to have their own secure private parking. And it's more efficient this way as well to the rest of the design. So.
Well, there was the issue too, and yeah, Eileen, you speak to this, but I mean, it's a postage stamp piece of property, and as they all, right, and, postage stamp. This one is really small. And we're dealing with that lobby area that's taking up a quarter or more of the footprint of the building. So to do the ramping systems to get up and everything, it makes it almost impossible to be able to, well, it is impossible to get a ramp up.
In order, we actually got more parking by eliminating a ramp that went up to that level. And then, so we got more parking because we went up, and we also have more parking because we didn't put the ramp. So it works in many ways to have those 30 parking spaces on their own level and not connected to the rest of the garage.
Yeah. Can I just flag Rob? Rob, did you want to jump in here? Where's his hand up?
Just you have your hand raised.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I think that's a residual hand raising. So.
All right, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Aiden.
Because, I mean, that's pretty unfortunate because in a way that parking spot has become like a form generator of segregation with this raised platform that you've kind of addressed right now with this new landscaping plan, but also separating the various residents. Can you talk more about, and I'm sorry if I missed this in the presentation, the bicycle parking? Is that still at the G2 and G3 levels?
Yes, but you access it from the lobby. So you go in through the lobby, you go down in the elevator to get there.
Okay.
If you wanted to go in the garage, you could, but you don't have to.
And what type of parking are you accounting for? Are you accounting for heavier bikes, e-bikes, and?
That's actually transformed. The way bikes are used has transformed since we started designing this building. Yeah. And we will continue, as soon as we get past this step, we will continue designing the building, and we will design for the usage that is being used, right? We want to serve the residents in the building with the kind of bike storage they need. So it hasn't been done yet, but that's the intention.
So right now you don't have a design for how these bikes would be stored. You just have a general idea.
We have the storage that met the requirements before there was a desire to integrate the electric and the heavier bikes. So that's there, and it will evolve to meet the requirements that we need.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
the intention is there.
Are we gonna able to have any feedback on that down the road, like through the regular planning commission?
Yeah, I think that's another issue that we'd like to flag before it comes to the planning commission or the transportation commission, if you guys are planning to go there, that you have a clear understanding of what the bike storage, bike charging, and bike access will be. I think if I heard you correctly, and if I can follow up with David, bike storage comes in through the lobby. I don't know, what's the recommendation on that? It seems like we almost would be okay with it coming through the garage.
You can get there from the garage.
Okay.
But you can also get there from, you don't have to drive down the ramps to get there.
I mean, the ideal, of course, is at grade. Right. Just roll your bike in, not having to open all these doors. I don't know how many doors you're gonna have to push. It's kind of awkward, especially if you have a bigger cargo bike, as more and more people do. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, I think this would make I think we're all on the same page because the good parking setup for the bicycles would make the property more attractive as well for all. So I hope we can continue working on that and getting it right. I know that's kind of like a theme of all of the new developments is we're having to work on designing like even what way the door swings in or out to facilitate people moving with their bikes.
And just to jump in for DES, the applicant will be required to design and deliver their required bike parking consistent with the county's guidelines for bicycle parking in site plan development. These are design standards which we maintain to help support and ensure that there are enough, not only enough spaces, but also the spaces are usable and function for the residents. One of the elements of those design guidelines is that a certain portion of the spaces need to be on the concrete level, so they can't be stacked spaces. Not all spaces can be stacked. And then they are actually just a U-type rack, which can have a wider spacing and a longer layout area. So these are areas which the county continues to evolve and integrate into our standards.
I mean, it'd be nice also if there was an ability to charge some of these electric bikes. I mean, that doesn't.
We've heard that.
Yeah, it doesn't.
We've heard that as well. So I just posted up here the floor plan at the Fairfax Drive level. So that's the, we have about 12,000 square feet building and that you can see it's not a large lobby that's in the corner. We have a vestibule to walk into the lobby, 2-story space. Then you go back to the elevators on the back left. Right? The rest of this is loading dock and parking. Is loading dock and parking so that we can park down. Right? So this is the level where you come in from Fairfax and you go around and down. So that's all the space we have to work with at that level.
Somebody with a bike would be crossing the whole lobby.
Be crossing the rest. Yeah. I ride a bike. I'd rather do something different, but it's the best we can do. I mean, I understand.
Thank you, Commissioner. Karen.
Is there any space that's going to be allocated for scooters? I've seen in other places where scooters take up real estate parking spaces, and I just wanted to know if there's any location that's going to be dedicated for that.
I don't know.
We haven't actually talked.
But we'll take that comment back.
Yeah. It sounds like it's not possible, but I think from a safety perspective, if there was a way to have the entrance for the 30 parking spaces be Fairfax Drive, just so that the residents don't have to play chicken with Taft Towers, sort of coming in from the other side of the street. And also, I know it's rare, but during snow and ice, North Shore Street basically is a slip and slide. So if there's a way to have it be that flat entrance on Fairfax Drive, it would be, I think, a much safer entrance and exit for those residents. But it sounds like you'd have to give up quite a few parking spaces for the other residents in order to be able to do that.
Forever, all the residents have less parking spaces to distribute across all of us.
Great. Yes, Ed.
Yes, and just to wrap up my transportation-related comments, I get the sense you want to move on.
No. This is transportation. I've been waiting for you to pipe up.
Yeah, I wanted other people to go first. I have some questions for the county. Is there, given that there's kind of like a redundancy with the sidewalks on North Courthouse, is there any plan for the county to put a protected bike lane and really connect that Roslyn-Boston corridor to the trail down at Fairfax, which I think would be a big benefit to these residents as this building as well.
Rob, just want to see if Rob got that question.
So your question relates to bike improvements on Fairfax Drive, just to make sure I heard that correctly, and the addition of protected bike facilities there, correct?
No, on North Courthouse. So it's not exactly right next to this building, a little bit further up, connecting Fairfax and Courthouse. The street's correct.
No, you're right. I think
Yes,
it's courthouse to connect to the trail.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I continually think of, I used to live in the neighborhood on a different portion of Fairfax. So yes. So we do not have plans to change any of the configuration at really once you get into the interchange, which is sort of that the bit down there. If I was to use this area, I think that we have I'm sorry if my recollection is wrong, a bike lane, but not a protected bike lane that goes on the opposite side of the bridge and then connects underneath to the trail. But we do not have plans currently to put protected bike lanes further down Courthouse than what is going to be delivered with the landmark project up to the north at Clarendon Boulevard.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if it were possible to do that, because there is kind of a redundant sidewalk down there and some space. Who that belongs to exactly, I guess might be a different question, but there's definitely a gap in the network, especially when you take into account all the improvements, as you said, that are happening up the street. It would be really nice to kind of just have that final little gap and connect it and have a really nice network. Another question is, has the county evaluated potentially narrowing the streets on Fairfax Drive and Troy? Currently, Troy is 11.5 feet wide per lane. Like, why not go down to 10, and it would give more space for either a sidewalk or a planning buffer, because these are pretty low volume streets.
So if we were to go to a smaller section, what we'd likely do is something that you see out there today, which is 8 or 9 foot lanes, and then maintain the on-street parking on both sides of the street. So the reason why the applicant shows the 11.5 foot wider lanes is because they're maintaining the curb to curb width that is out there today, but the parking lane in that particular section of the cross section is removed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you. I think that's all I have for now.
Great. Thank you, sir. Thank you for all those questions. And then moving on to, is it last call on transportation?
Yes,
Sorry, can you give me your name?
Yeah, James Brinson with the Tap Towers Board.
Welcome, James.
Thank
You're
you. There was a question last meeting about the service. I don't know if it's an alley or the dumpster or trash, and where is that being accounted for as to moving in or trash collection based on where it is currently between Wakefield Manor and the street level park?
So here, yeah, so that, where the arrow, Kevin has carefully put that arrow, which is slightly off the property, is where the dumpster would be moving into an enclosure that we've been installing that is brick. And it would have, it would actually be not the dumpster, but it would be the cans, so that it, you know, so you.
The toters.
The toters, yeah. And I think about 8 or 10, 12. There's a bunch of them in there, so that we don't have to worry about the truck trying to take a dumpster and dumping it right there. So that's why it's.
And then in the parking structure, you mentioned loading docks. Is that for people moving in and out of the building? And that would be on Fairfax Drive?
On Fairfax Drive.
And I'll just say, when somebody said that street being kind of low volume, I think those of us who live there kind of reacted. It may be considered low volume, but I've seen with the number of people who will be needing to use that street, it will be a much higher volume. And when that ice is over, it is a mess. I hope that the county will that salted or plowed or something. It's really a mess when it starts icing over that street. There'll be a lot of people using that street. Just an observation.
So you're talking about Troy specific, it gets a lot of use.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else on transportation before we move on to building, no, not building heights, green building and sustainability? Looking at last. Okay, with that, I think we're gonna wrap up the transportation area and we'll move on to building, green building and sustainability questions. Does anybody have any questions or any comments?
Hi, I'm Stephen D'Alessio. I'm with C2E2.
Welcome.
Yeah. So there was a comment prior to this just about how C2E2 always urges developers to go beyond the 10% goal of EV charging spots, and just reiterating that yes, we do. If that is possible, we'd love you guys to go beyond that. Are there any opportunities or plans to go beyond the 20% goal for energy savings on this plan?
At this time, until we get into further design, right now, that's the goal.
Okay. And one last thing, are there any plans to make use of like a in-unit hot water heat pumps?
I can't tell you that we won't.
All right. Thank you very much. And actually, I know that there was some discussion around, actually, yeah, I think it's good. Yeah, I think you're, sorry.
Let me go with Commissioner Peterson.
So there's been a lot of talk in the news, New York requiring electric appliances, no more gas stoves in apartments. Are you?
These would not be gas.
Pardon?
These would not be gas.
Okay, so it's going to all be electric kitchen appliances. Okay.
That was my question.
Okay, Ivan?
But isn't some of the heating gas? Like the stoves themselves are electric, but if I remember vaguely from the first documents for the March hearing, some of the heating was gas or a furnace or something.
Hot water?
Yeah, hot water.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have gas for heating in the HVAC system, probably, yeah, but not the appliances.
I'd like to follow up on that thing. Yes. I would just like to encourage you to consider going to all electric because it's better for the environment, and I'm sure.
Yes. I second.
Yes, I too associate myself with the notion that moving away from gas totally. I was just reading Toronto building waterfront. I mean, they have some different thermal situations there, but they are able to completely electrify, and their weather is a little bit cooler than ours. So I think if they can do it, we probably can find a way. So as much as we can encourage to push the envelope on that, I'm getting a lot of nods around the table, so I feel fairly confident say it's fairly good consensus going. Anything that you can show us that you tried will go a long way in making us feel better and making you feel better. All right. Anything else?
I mean, I was wondering, what's from your perspective, the decision that you made to have that gas? What was it driven by? How much of a price difference are we talking about, or what's the decision making that goes into that?
I mean, we're still early in the design process.
Yeah.
We're not doing like the pricing analysis at this point for that, but it's what we think is right for the project.
Based on what?
Just our current design that our design needs. So.
But we're happy to look at it, and we are meeting the
We have
goal
to,
level
yeah,
of
we
0.35.
do have to meet all of these goals.
Yeah.
So these are really driving the initial design decisions for the systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just wanted to know if it was something that you're strongly wedded to, or something that you kind of.
If the
included
economics
as a
work out,
reflex.
it's always better.
Yeah.
But we committed to these goals. They're fairly aggressive for this small a building, so we are doing the best we can with what we have.
Commissioner Peterson.
I have a question about the bird-friendly glass. And so it's 8 to 36 feet. A lot of the recommendations are often that it should be 10 feet higher than whatever the tree level is or the tree canopy in the area. So if you have that elevated courtyard with all these really tall trees, which would be wonderful for shade, that would increase possibly the height that you would be recommending to put the bird-friendly glass. So I just wanted to kind of find out what your thoughts are on that. How tall will those trees be, higher than 36 feet, or are they?
I think we'll just take your note and look at it as we further the design.
If I can follow up on that really quickly before I go to Kellen. Will you be calculating the 8 to 36 at that level? Or is there like how do you calculate that? Do we have a grade?
Like the average site elevation.
Okay.
I'm not sure how the green building standards are applied, but kind of from site plan perspective, we use average site elevation.
Okay. So it could be significant, like the trees could be significantly higher than the average grade 35, 36 feet. So that's a good point. Kellen?
Thank you. I just had a clarification question. The 20% energy savings, what is that?
That is the 20% energy savings above and beyond the baseline. It's ASHRAE, and it's the current one, because that gets updated every time. I can't remember which year it is, but it's the one that goes with it. So
No idea what you're talking about, but okay.
it is a standard above which we have to actually improve in order to get to gold, right?
Oh, okay. So it has to do with the LEED certificate. Okay.
But can I just go back? Commissioner, we will take that comment back about the sort of the taller trees, how the average site elevation is calculated. Bird threat comments, we'll get an answer by the time we go to the planning commission.
Great. Anything else on green building and sustainability?
Are you guys looking at doing like a white roof or anything like that, or?
Yes, we will have a light colored roof wherever we don't have anything else. I mean, we have a very small roof and we're trying to occupy it. Yes, it will be a light colored.
On the plantings list, when you come up with it, it would be extremely helpful, and I think it would count a lot if you would name the plants and the actual species. Not all butterfly plants are created equal, and so I think you get a lot of credit if you could do what Amazon did, and they hired the guy who retired from the Arboretum, and they got really good quality advice. So, just a little note.
We have to provide those planning details at the time of final landscape plan, which are typically not done until putting to grade permits, so much later in the process. So it's all pretty conceptual right now, but perhaps we could put together just a list of potential species that we would be considering.
That's a good point, and that's something that is taken in some others because we're not able to what the promises were at the time stage. So the more specific you can be, the more credit you'll get from us.
Dr. Bernie Byrne, I will sort of take a little bit of a moment here to say he will ask for, what is it, honeysuckles?
Milkweed.
Milkweed,
Swamp
thank you.
milkweed, not just
Yes.
any milkweed.
Yes, very specific milkweed. So that will be coming too. So as much as you can provide, I agree, it's helpful. Aiden, did you have your hand up?
No.
No? All right. Anyone else have any comments?
And actually, it's just one point of clarification. You mentioned with regards to the stormwater work you're doing, is it you're hitting all kinds of your goals on that? So I can just go through quickly what the changes are going to be again?
Hey, Jeff, are you available?
Sorry about that.
I am. I mean, I can talk in broad terms. I think, as I've said before, maybe to meet the stormwater goals are, we have effectively a variety of things that we can employ from utilizing the small green roof area that Eileen mentioned on the top, as well as stormwater planters, basically to help reduce the runoff, right? That's our goal in the main courtyard area. Those are the sort of the primary ways that we will deal with it, just because the site is so small. So all the roof water will be directed down via the rain leaders into those, that courtyard area. It's a small enough area of roof that we can treat it in the courtyard. So that's broadly speaking is the general intent. The final numbers haven't been crunched because things are still evolving, but that's the general idea.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Great. All right. Comments, any questions? All right. Absolutely.
Every picture that I see, there's like 2 or 3 trees on the street sides. Is there any reason why we don't have more trees there? What is?
There's a lot of utilities underground there, especially in Fairfax. And Jeff can talk about it more, but we spent a fair amount of time trying to figure out where we could actually put the trees.
That's correct, yeah.
Well, that's especially true along Fairfax Drive,
Yes,
right?
especially.
Yeah.
Great. I think that's it. Do we have anything on construction plan?
Chair Sarli, this is we did get to this in our opening presentation, but I think there was a question about construction timing. And assuming action by the county board, if it takes action to approve it, then later this year, we'd be looking at mid-2024, about 24 months for construction. And then there are a series of things that are required under the site plan conditions, traffic plan, construction hauling plan, off-street parking for construction workers plan, construction hour limitations, a variety of different things. I think it was brought up about mail package deliveries for existing residents. We're gonna have to work on that as well. We don't have that information right now, but we have to work through that, and it has to be approved by the county manager, and then committing to quarterly outreach meetings with the community as well. But just wanted to put the time frame up there.
Okay.
So about the construction then and going back to the parking, so what does happen for the existing residents during construction where they're going to lose all of the parking?
So that's something that we'll have to work on during the preparation of all of these different things. It means securing off-site facilities or something like that temporarily. It means just working with adjacent owners. That hasn't been determined.
It's just something we're gonna have to figure out, coordinate with the property owners.
Okay, so that is part of what you will be working on.
Absolutely.
All right. Anyone else? All right, go ahead.
So I just have a question, and this is maybe something I should have asked at the beginning. When you were doing your presentation and you said there were, I think, 95 online comment period submissions, but a third of them were from residents who lived on the property. Could you give us a summary of like what that feedback was? Because I imagine this might be very relevant to them.
Yeah.
Did you in your presentation provide what they said?
Not in this presentation, but I will say before I kind of get into that, all the feedback is posted online. We also have a common themes we heard from the respondents, and then both staff and applicant have provided responses to those. But I think, kind of generally speaking, some of the concerns were, building form, impacts to parking, as well as traffic, on-street parking availability, and especially in terms of, the actual construction, what will happen to those existing parking spaces where we'll park during construction, kind of how long will it be? And we also heard about, the actual noise and, physical impacts of construction, how that may or may not, impact the historic residences, which are really close by. So those are kind of the things we've heard.
Okay. And as part of this project, there will be a liaison for the existing residents, and if they have concerns during the project, they'll be able to reach out to that liaison.
Correct.
And can you remind us what are the hours that construction would be allowed to be completed, just so they can kind of plan for when is it going to be loud, when is it going to be quiet?
That is part of the conditions. I don't know the exact hours.
9 to 9, Monday to Friday, Monday 10 to 9, Monday to Saturday, 10 to 9 some days.
Can't hear you.
I'm sorry, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Mondays through Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 9
Is that the standard for the
That's the
council?
standard.
I thought it was 7 to 9.
Could be 7 to 9.
I had the big argument about the Wendy's site, remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Remember, I tried to push it back from 7 to 8, I got a lot of feedback,
It is
pushback from the
7.
county on
Yeah, I'm
that.
sorry.
Okay, so 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and then on Sundays,
It's like, let me look up.
We'll look it
the
up.
I think
Sunday.
9 to 9 is like the weekends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I think so, yeah.
okay, I just want to make sure that the residents who live there or nearby kind of know what to expect and that they have a liaison that they can reach out to if they feel like what they heard today isn't being delivered.
Great. Commissioner Guevara?
I just have a question. You had 94 participants and only one Spanish-speaking participant who replied on the online feedback. Were other languages also explored? And do you have an idea as to the discrepancy as to why there's such little engagement from other community members?
We're not entirely sure why only one was responding through the Spanish translated form. We did provide, the flyer in both English and Spanish, so it's kind of up to the individual to kind of choose which language they fill out the form in. But those were the only two languages the form was, translated in. Typically it's, primarily in English. However, for this specific project, we did want to kind of ensure that at least Spanish speakers had the opportunity to provide comment in their native language.
And is there any place to include information about persons with disabilities where they could include some of their comments? Maybe, I know earlier they were mentioning about sort of the ramp and who has access to that. Do we have any of the specific data that's included in your feedback form or we could capture somehow?
In terms of, that type of comments, we do have the Disability Advisory Commission included as part of the SPRC membership. So, we are, open and welcome feedback from that group. But I think, just generally, we are open to that type of feedback, in this setting or through email. Feel free to contact me.
And of course, I know it would be voluntary, but I'm just wondering if there's any other active sort of way of doing this when they're providing their online information.
I think, we tried our best to outreach to the, SPRC members list in the different commissions. So I think that was kind of our main focus for, gathering that type of feedback.
Do we ever go beyond that?
Typically, membership of SPRC does include the Disability Commission, a representative. So we didn't have one of this. That's always an outreach that's made.
For this process.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I was just wondering if there's something else beyond that, but if that's covered.
Great, thank you. All right, anything else on building construction plan? Sorry, I keep saying building.
Sort of, I guess, a comment. So at what point do you all share with the residents, like existing Wakefield Manor, like here's the construction timeline, here's the plan for losing all your parking, at least temporarily, losing access to the dumpster, trash, and those other impacts? Like where in the process does that come?
During the site plan process, and sort of after the 4.1, completing our design, and as we go through the construction plan as well, sharing it.
Okay. Is there like a required resident meeting or something that you guys have to have, or
We're talking about quarterly outreach meetings.
during construction? Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, when does that start in the process?
Yes, I think there's one.
You have to hold a resident meeting. Liaison is by a certain permitting.
It's either the demo permit or the final building permit. So kind of pretty early on in the process, they are required to kind of have a meeting with the community community as well as establish a community.
Just a direct follow-up question to that. How do you intend to reach
I'm
out?
sorry, yeah, do you mind till the public speaking and then we
Oh,
can
I'm
talk,
sorry, I didn't
or we can
realize.
talk? No, all good, thanks for coming. I think, any other questions on construction? Sorry,
James Britton. This may be a naive question, but there's concerns at Tap Tower, so I'll ask it. When a building is constructed, is there a lot of dust that just is going to waft over to neighboring buildings? And I'm thinking about the Wendy's site, like, is that a common procedure? Or we say like, when we construct a building?
They're supposed to water it down. They have dust mitigations.
Oh, okay.
Construction plan.
Okay. Although I'm
part
sort of
of it.
going on a tangent here a little bit, but usually that's more associated with demolition, right? So there's not too much demolition that's going to be happening here. I mean, there definitely will be dust, like, let's not be naive about it. But yeah, I think once they start
I still
digging and
think during
stuff-
construction that there are
Mitigation
mitigation plans that are put in place because we don't want dragging stuff out into the street.
Right, and you have the street cleaner, right, that comes around every day or two.
Yeah,
or
so
whatever.
those things are, we want to be good.
Great. Anything else before we go to, and the next topic is community benefits. So if anybody has any, Hayden?
Just a brief transportation related thing regarding construction. I hope that you will be mindful about sidewalks, public space to the extent that's possible. I know in some of the other sites, there's been an issue of people having to walk out on the streets and whatnot, things that are relatively unsafe because of the way the construction site was set up. So, I mean, sure, but something to keep in mind. For biking, just going up.
Lighting also, if any streetlights have to be taken down during construction, have some sort of temporary lighting. That's been an issue with other construction sites.
Sure, sorry, I don't know, Dan Fantel, if you're online, but the county manager would have to approve any temporary closure of public sidewalks and, where that would be located. But Dan, do you want to elaborate on that at all?
I was having trouble hearing the question. Could you?
Just about maintenance of safe sidewalks, and if any of them are temporarily closed, that there is an alternative detour, or that there's something that has to be approved by the county before you can just close a sidewalk off.
Yeah, that will have to be worked out through the maintenance of traffic plan. And I think that what we found is sort of policies is the county doesn't want to close sidewalks. And usually we try to find ways to avoid having that happen, but sometimes it's necessary. But that's something that will be worked out during the construction phase.
And I imagine ditto for any lighting safety concerns.
Yeah, I think, Jeff, do you have a little more experience on that?
Yeah, there is a requirement as part of the civil engineering site plan submission that a temporary lighting plan be reviewed and approved by the county in addition to the final plan. So both of those scenarios get evaluated during the site plan review process.
Thank you. All right, community benefits. You ready to move on? Any questions about community benefits?
Yeah, how many units will be on site and what size are they going to be? 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, studio, that sort of thing?
So we are still negotiating that out with staff. There are 3 levels of affordable housing. One is the base affordable housing contribution, which then the second one per the Fort Myers Heights North Plan is to have on-site affordable units, everything between a 1.0 FAR and a 3.24 FAR for the site. So when we've calculated that out, it's generally, it's about 20% of that. It's about 4,928 square feet. Under the existing approval, 75% of that was to be provided in the new building. 25% of that was to be provided in the existing Wakefield Manor building. So we would be taking one of the existing, historic building units, or however many of them there are, and converting them to committed affordable units. Under the current plan, however, and per the negotiation with the property owner, we are pushing all of those units into the new building. So none will be provided, like none of the existing market rate affordable units will be converted to a CAF. They will all be in the new building. And then we have not gotten into the discussion with staff yet about the on-site affordable units as part of the 29,000 square feet, 24,000 square feet of bonus density that we would be seeking. So we don't know the exact amount, like what percentage staff is going to be requesting, and we don't yet know the unit breakdown between 1, 2, or 3 bedroom units.
Okay, and we do work on, consider having some of the units being disabled
Type A
friendly, but
units.
yeah, right.
Yes.
Also on the affordable housing side, are you only looking at 60% of AMI, or are you looking at anything below?
I think we'd be looking at 60% of AMI.
I would encourage you to look at least some units below that. We have a huge shortage of CAF units at anything below 60% of AMI. And especially for our very low income, I mean, 30% would be amazing. Even if that's fewer units, it would be amazing to have more of those because the county has like 10. And we have to double and triple subsidy residents to just who are in that income category to be able to live in our CAF units. So that would be fantastic if that's something that you could work on with staff to figure out a way to have any that are below 60% of AMI.
Jerry, right? Right. Could you expand upon the last community benefit? I think you talked about this last time, but I don't remember the additional plantings around historic buildings.
This is something that we had heard in the first SPRC meeting, that there was a desire to have additional shade to counteract the sun hitting the western facades of the buildings in the afternoon.
Okay.
And we don't have the ability to use utilities and just sheer space along North Courthouse Road, which is where those would go, to put in any new trees. But we have identified locations along the northern side of the property, adjacent to 13th Street North, where there isn't much in the way of vegetation.
Did you have that on the plan that you showed?
I don't think it's been put on the plan yet. No.
So it's along 13th Street?
It would be along 13th Street North. That's where we're proposing additional plantings, or where we're going to.
How many, are you talking just trees?
Trees.
Trees, okay.
That's right.
And you don't know how many yet, or?
I think we're looking, Jeff, were we able to fit in like 5 trees, something like that?
Yeah, that's the rough order at this point. We haven't, done the final planting plan yet, but that was the idea. That's the area least encumbered by utilities and easements.
So that would be on the south side of 13th, north of
Correct.
13th Street.
Correct.
That's where the new sidewalk is going in.
That's right.
This would not be with the new sidewalk, like in a landscape amenity panel. This would be between the sidewalk and the grassy area between the sidewalk and the edge of the building, the face of the building.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else on community benefits?
I mean, just to keep it in this topic, I just want to reiterate the conversation that we had earlier about the plantings and the stormwater. Naming the plants. And I think we covered it.
Perfect.
In this area too.
Sure.
Okay. I think that's it. Having said that, I think that's the last item that I have on my agenda. Does anyone have anything else they want to talk about? Open forum now. If there's any issue, any topic, we covered it all. Everyone feels comfortable with this. They've given the applicant all the feedback you have pent up. You're feeling good about this project? Great. Am I pushing it a little bit? All right. Okay, with that, I think we can do some wrap-up comments. Am I forgetting anything? Wrap-up comments. So we'll go around, and you don't have to do the wrap-up comment. You're welcome to skip it, but just, to give your impression to the applicant, let them know how you feel and what you think of this project overall, and any feedback. And feel free to skip. I'm going to start with Commissioner Steinberger.
Hi, thank you. No, I was pleased to get to hear from the group. I think we've made, substantive progress since the last meeting as well. I think parking with regards to the number of spaces for residents of the existing property is going to continue to be a concern and something that we're going to hear more about when it does come to planning commission. But no, I'm very pleased with the progress we're making towards the committed on-site portable units. I'm pleased to hear that, and I'm sure conversations with staff will continue, and we're headed in a positive direction on that. So thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Guevara, did you want to say anything?
No, and just getting involved really into the process. It's good to hear your perspective and looking forward to making sure we incorporate more of the community's feedback into these plans as well.
I'm good with almost everything. I'm just looking forward to seeing the actual numbers on the on-site affordable, but I know that it comes late in the process.
Just reiterating that we are at a really important moment with the climate crisis, and we need to go above and beyond our sustainability goals, as we discussed on electric vehicles and energy savings.
Yeah, I made comments last time on behalf of the HALRB. I don't think I have to repeat those. I think we'll probably be writing a letter to the Planning Commission expressing a lot of disappointment building given that, there's all these transfer and development rights to the Wendy's site. There's a lot of money involved there, and we're disappointed that it doesn't reflect the historic properties as much as the original site plan did, and we don't really think that you've tried hard enough to reflect the historic Wakefield Manor property.
I have no approval.
Thank you. Stephen?
Yeah, so I mean, there were a couple things that make this site very difficult. Having the second curb cut is not ideal, but in terms of the transportation, from a transportation perspective, I hope that we'll stay in touch about the bicycle parking and kind of to work on that. I think overall, in terms of the project, you mentioned the postage stamp size, but it's also that just a two-dimensional thing. There's a vertical constraint as well. And while I'd like to reiterate the energy concerns, I think it's important that this site has 62 more units than the previous one had. So there's energy benefits per capita based on that. That's a huge improvement. That's more units than will be available through the annual missing middle expanded housing option, whatever, however you refer to it. So I think that's a huge positive. I just wish that it wasn't just people that lived in Wakefield Manor that were inconvenienced with parking that in other parts of the county as well. But opening up a can of worms with that comment. So we'll continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think overall, I appreciate the balance between preserving the historic units and also maximizing what you can do in this space by adding more residential units. I remain concerned, however, about the impact on existing residents, especially from a parking perspective and any displacement that could cause, as well as the huge impact that construction is going to cause for residents, and making sure that it's properly mitigated to reduce the negative impacts as much as possible.
I appreciate that you have done more with the trees and that you're meeting the county requirement now. I think that's a great improvement. I want to encourage you to, if you could find other spots to slap a canopy tree, that would just make me even more happy. But the grassy areas and things like that, even if you can't plant trees, there are many native shrubs. There are other plantings that you can do. Less grass and the more native shrubs and other types of plantings that we can have, if they're done correctly, they don't have to be a maintenance nightmare. They can actually be less maintenance than turf grass. And I would reiterate on the species list, there are those of us who just love those things, and they really do tell us what direction this is going to go in. Just on the aside, I agree on the energy stuff and on the EVs. It's like just getting out in front of it. I mean, it's here now, and we're going to be behind the curve here if we're not looking to the future. So, thanks.
Yeah, I'll try to summarize, but you know, pivoting off of what she said, it's really, really important to try to get rid of that natural gas in your building. That's one of the most important things. If this building is going to be around for 50 years, you know, we don't want to have natural gas going for that long. I'd also just like to point out that Radnor-Fort Myers Heights is one of the 10 communities in Arlington that is on the tree canopy equity program. The reason it's there is because it has one of the lowest tree canopy coverages in the entire county. It's like 17%. So the fact that you're increasing it from something to 10% is nice, I guess is the way to put it. But it's we need to do much better as a community. So, you know, try to find other places to put trees, and if you have other properties that you own, come see us and we will give you free trees to put on there, because the tree canopy equity program is in full swing, and that might count. That might count a lot, especially in these tree canopy equity 10 neighborhoods. So, sorry for that aside, but not sorry, really.
That wasn't
exciting. That was your closing statement.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I may. You have trees, just so that we know too. You have a series of trees. What caliber are they? Are they in a bucket? Like?
Oh, no, this is a program, the money that developers pay into Arlington County goes to the trust. And the trust money is used to purchase trees to plant on private property, so that we can try to get our tree canopy up in the county. And this year we started a program focusing on these equity neighborhoods that have very low tree canopy and high poverty and high persons of color percent. So that's very important, because the tree canopy fund, this is the tree canopy fund, and when we focus on these big trees, it goes to the already treed neighborhoods, if you will, because they have room for them. So we really want to try to get as much vegetation other than grass into the equity neighborhoods, because people are living there. It affects their health. It affects their psychological well-being and everything else. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
So
Yes, yes. Thank you for your thoughtful, just your responses to our questions and concerns from the last meeting. So thank you for that. I know that there will be many neighbors who will not be thrilled at the 2-year construction and noise and everything. That said, I know it will be really important for us as community members to be able to communicate these quarterly outreach meetings, a place for people to voice their concerns, to get information so they're not as worried, so we can accept it more, being connected to the liaison for the construction. I think that'll be really important for the neighboring buildings and everybody involved, so looking forward to communicating that.
If I may say, I mean, typical construction time is 18 months to 2 years, which is what we
Sure.
concerned, but it's not 18 months or 2 years of bang, bang, bang outside, dust, demolition, or anything like that, because once the building goes up, it gets skinned, the windows go up, and then it's a lot of interior fit out, which is the vast majority of, well, not the vast majority, the majority of the time.
Right.
So want to get that thing rain-proofed as quickly as possible and start working out the interior fit out.
I'll pass, that's a perfect example of, construction, we can think of the main.
Great, thank you. Do you have any?
I'll pass so that the residents of Wakefield can have fun.
Perfect.
Thank you. I wanted to echo what my colleagues around the table were saying about more electric to deal with the climate crisis. I agree with that. I also wanted to say thank you very much for putting electric appliances in units. A lot of the buildings that we see that are coming before the Planning Commission use gas stoves still. So I think that this is an improvement if you're using electric stoves. Also wanted to just say thank you for any on-site affordable housing, if we can do as much as we can with that. As well as larger affordable units that families can live in. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about e-bike parking plans, and if you can increase the EV parking situation so that also addresses the climate. Thank you.
Great, thanks. I also will skip, since you've heard from me enough. I would like to do public comment now, and then after that, we'll do next steps. Does that work for you, Kevin? Great. Did you guys want to do a public comment? I know we didn't have a sign-up sheet, but would
Yes,
you like to
please.
take 2 minutes? All right, feel free.
So I've been
Sorry,
a,
please introduce yourself.
my name is Alex, I'm a resident of Wakefield Manor.
Thank you.
I've been there for almost 10 years now. Most of my neighbors have been there a lot longer than that. Some upwards of 30 and 40 years. And we find this project is gonna be immensely disruptive to our lives. It's probably going to force us to move. Like even if parking was available, enough of it, we don't know what we're gonna do during, where we're gonna have to relocate. I can't take public transit to work. I work on the other side of town. So, coming home and having somewhere to park is important. We don't have enough spaces already. The lot overflows every night. Street parking is full every night. So losing lot spaces and street spaces, that's not okay. And like, even if, if there were enough, like, I don't care about the new residents, give those extra parking spaces to the existing ones. Keep or at least increase the number of parking spaces. But even then, it's like, that's 2 years of disruption to our lives. And people who've lived there for decades are gonna end up getting forced to move because of this.
Decreasing the number of parking spaces from 42 to 30 seems like an egregious overlooking and a disregard to the folks that are living in Wakefield Manor, who again have been living there, some of them for 50 or 60 years. The super, when we moved in, was 102 years old. He lived there for 60 years. I can't put into words more than what he already has and what I already have about how disruptive this will be. This will likely cause us to move not just out of Wakefield Manor, but likely out of the county. There are not necessarily affordable homes that are there, but the rate that these units are going for is low enough that folks that are coming in are people that would likely be grouped into the low income side of things. And it just seems like with a move like this, not only does Arlington developers, whomever, not care, but you are disregarding it. And especially when you look at that tall building, which is now creating a valley for all of the residents in Wakefield Manor, where the sun will no longer shine.
Great, can I just get your name?
Jen.
Thank you, Jen.
Sure.
And you're a resident.
I am.
Thanks. The gentleman behind the column that I can't see.
I don't think I'm going to say anything now.
All right, thank you. Well, thanks for coming. And then we have a gentleman on the line, right?
We do have at least one online comment, Mr. Byrne. Hand up first. And I see Mr. Stein has put his hand up. Mr. Stein, just put your name in the chat there, and we'll get to you second.
Go ahead, Mr. Byrne. You got 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. The applicant stated that in discussing his landscape plans for the area around Fairfax Drive with the DES, it is important for all concerned to recognize that the DES, which I sometimes describe as a Department of Environmental Destruction, often prefers a hardscape rather than green space. The discussion is therefore focusing on the creation of seating areas and similar amenities in the area near Fairfax Drive, rather than the creation of green spaces and natural areas. To comply with the County Board's 2016 Monarch Pledge, the applicant needs to inform the DES of that pledge and the need to create pollinator areas, rain gardens, and natural spaces near Fairfax Drive, rather than seating areas, mowed lawns, etc. These will help restore the county's declining populations of monarch butterflies and other pollinators. DES hasn't quite got the message. I sent a message to VICA that contains my suggestions for the project's landscaping. I received an encouraging response, but no specifics. Despite my request, the applicant has still not supported a detailed conceptual landscape plan that shows and lists the species locations of all shrubs, perennials, and ground covers. To assure that the public can review this information in a timely manner, the applicant should submit this plan before the Planning Commission's public hearing. The numbers of each plant species are not necessary for public review, but the location of species are. The landscape plan should contain many plantings of common milkweed, Asclepias syriaca. This is the only plant that survives well in Arlington's natural area and that monarchs prefer when laying eggs. A U.S. Forest Service publication describes common milkweed as, quote, nature's mega food for insects. Over 450 insects feed on some portion of the planet. In the Northeast and Midwest, it is among the most important food plants for monarch caterpillars, unquote. So please make sure that there's plenty of that in your planting plan in that area around Fairfax Drive, on the terrace, on the, whatever the terrace, and any results you can plant. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Byrne.
Mr. Stuart Stein is next.
Stuart, you're next.
Yes, hello.
A little too fast.
What?
A little too fast, but it was good.
Hello. Yeah, first of all, I definitely want to support what concerns of people for parking for the current residents. The people with becoming less spaces having some opportunity. And I know it's not popular in the county, but I definitely feel that the ratio, even though it's not the minimum that could ever be done and in these areas, I still think it's absolutely insufficient for the area and for the needs of the residents. And I also want to say that I would certainly support the HALARB, who had a lot to do with the deals that made this possible in the first place. And of course, Chris Zimmerman was the other part of that. And lastly, I would say that anything you can do for, two things. The canopy, anything you can do for that, of course, was a major concern of ours when we were putting together the North Meyer Heights plan. And when we were doing that, we were quite surprised at the densities that resulted when it was implemented, that it was even beyond the 3.24 that we thought was a lot at the time. But with all of that, with the additional bonus asked for, I would say I would certainly hope that you would consider what the gentleman said in regards to going below the 60% AMI. It would be a great gesture and something that we have encouraged, I've encouraged, and our area has encouraged for all these years to try to get below that 60% AMI. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. All right, with that, I think we're going to wrap up. I think before we go, let's talk about next steps. So next steps in the process would be obviously taking the feedback we've heard tonight, going back with the applicant to provide some changes. But once the project is in a good place, we take it to the various commissions. So Housing Commission, Transportation Commission, Planning Commission, followed by County Board. Now those dates of those meetings aren't scheduled yet. Kind of depend on the status of the project. But that's kind of the general timeline. Great. Any questions about next steps for Kevin or me? Yes.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to let members of the community know that you're welcome to send emails to Planning Commission before we hear it. You can speak at the Planning Commission's hearing. You can also message the County Board and speak at the County Board hearing. So there are more opportunities for you all to share your feedback.
Joe?
I had some information that's going to be sent to me. How will that be transmitted about the tree canopy? Who is going to find out the data?
Can you coordinate with Andrew?
Is that going to go to everybody?
Or Kevin.
I'll help coordinate. Okay, that. Great. Kate?
No, I'm interested in that too.
Okay.
I don't know if we're sending it to the
Okay.
commission.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming. Appreciate all your cooperation and deep thinking, and we'll see you. We won't see you. This is it. This is the last SPRC. We'll see you at the next commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.